My name is Mara Ellison, and I am 29 years old. 16 years ago, when I was still a 13-year-old girl who believed love had to be earned quietly, my parents packed my clothes into 2 laundry baskets, set them outside beside the back steps, and told me I was no longer welcome in their house. Last month, those same parents walked into the reading of my uncle's while wearing black clothes, expensive shoes, and the kind of confident faces people wear when they have already spent money they do not yet have. They brought a lawyer with them. They came certain that my uncle's estate would finally reward them for a relationship they had neglected for decades. But when the attorney opened the sealed file and began to read, their confidence started to crack. And when she reached the 7th article of the will, my mother, the woman who had once told me I was too ungrateful to be her daughter, stood up so fast her chair scraped against the floor. Her face went pale. Her mouth opened, but for once, nothing came out. To understand why that moment destroyed everything she thought she was about to claim, I have to take you back to the summer I learned that sometimes the people who call themselves family are only waiting for an excuse to stop pretending. I grew up in a narrow yellow house outside Boise, Idaho, the kind with an uneven driveway, tired window screens, and a backyard my father always promised he would fix next spring. My father, Paul Ellison, worked as a diesel mechanic. He smelled like engine oil and peppermint gum, and when he came home, he usually sank into his recliner and let my mother do most of the talking. My mother, Janice, worked at a dental office as the front desk coordinator, and she ran our home the same way she ran that office. Schedules, corrections, punishments, and a smile reserved for people she wanted to impress. My older sister, Cassidy, was 15 when everything happened. She was my mother's copy in every visible way. Same copper blonde hair, same sharp green eyes, same bright voice that filled a room before anyone else had a chance to speak. People always told my mother, "Cassidy looks exactly like you," and my mother would glow as if she had personally designed her. I looked like my father's side of the family. Dark brown hair, hazel eyes, olive skin that tanned easily, a quieter face. My grandmother, my father's mother, had looked like me. She had died before I was born, and whenever someone mentioned the resemblance, my mother's mouth tightened like the comparison had ruined the air. She never said I was ugly. She never said I was unwanted. She didn't have to. Children learn the truth from what adults repeat and what they refuse to say. Cassidy's drawings went on the refrigerator. My report cards went into a drawer. Cassidy's school plays became family events. My science fairs were hard to schedule around. When Cassidy wanted new clothes, my mother called it confidence. When I asked for new sneakers because mine had holes in the soles, she called it being demanding. For Cassidy's 16th birthday, my parents rented the back room of a restaurant, ordered custom cupcakes with silver frosting, and invited nearly every girl from her dance class. My father even took a day off work to help decorate. For my 13th birthday, 2 months later, my mother brought home a discounted vanilla cake from the grocery store with the words, "Happy Birthday," piped in blue icing. No name. No candles until my father found half a pack in a kitchen drawer. Cassidy complained that the frosting tasted waxy, and my mother laughed. I laughed too because I had learned that if I acted like nothing hurt, people were less likely to notice they had hit me. The moment I truly understood my position in the family came the year before they threw me out. I was looking for envelopes in the desk by the hallway when I found a bank folder with Cassidy's name on it. It was a college savings account. My parents had been putting money into it since she was 7. Not huge amounts, but regular amounts, the kind that proves someone has imagined your future. I asked my mother if I had one too. She was unloading the dishwasher, and she didn't even look up. Cassidy will need help, she said. She has big plans. I stood there holding the folder, waiting for the rest. When it didn't come, I asked, "What about me?" She shut the dishwasher with her hip and finally turned. "Mara, you're resourceful. You always land on your feet." At the time, I thought she meant it as a compliment. Later, I understood it was a warning. Resourceful children do not get protected. They get used. That summer, my science teacher encouraged me to apply for a 6-week robotics and engineering program at the University of Colorado. I didn't tell my parents because I was afraid they would laugh, or worse, tell me not to waste my time. The program was competitive. Students from across several states applied. It included housing, meals, lab access, and mentorship. The tuition alone was almost $5,000, but there were full scholarships for students with strong grades and recommendations. I wrote my essay late at night after everyone had gone to bed, sitting at the kitchen table with the overhead light buzzing above me. I mailed the application myself. Then I waited and pretended I hadn't. The acceptance letter arrived on a Thursday afternoon in May. I still remember the envelope. White, thick paper, my name printed correctly for once. I opened it on the porch because I didn't want my mother to see me hoping. I had been accepted, full scholarship, 6 weeks on campus. I read the first paragraph again and again until the words blurred. For one afternoon, I felt chosen, not tolerated, not compared. Chosen. I imagined calling my teacher. I imagined walking into a lab. I imagined a future where my mind mattered more than my family's opinion of me. Then Cassidy came home talking about an elite performing arts intensive in Los Angeles. Her drama coach had told her it could help with college applications and auditions. It was 3 weeks long and cost nearly $4,000. No scholarship, no guarantee. Just a glossy brochure with smiling teenagers on a stage. My mother spread the brochure across the kitchen table like it was a royal invitation. My father asked how much it cost, and my mother said, "We'll manage." I sat across from them with my acceptance letter folded in my pocket, feeling the shape of it against my leg. At dinner 2 nights later, my mother announced her decision. "Mara, you're going to decline that engineering camp. Cassidy's program is more important right now, and we can't do both." She said it while cutting chicken into neat pieces as if she were telling me we were out of milk. I stared at her. "Mine is paid for," I said. "The scholarship covers everything." She waved her fork. "There are always extra costs. Transportation, supplies, clothes, and frankly, Cassidy's opportunity is more practical. She has talent people can see." The words landed hard, but something in me had already shifted. Maybe it was the letter. Maybe it was the first taste of being valued somewhere outside that house. I heard myself say, "No, I'm not declining it." The table went silent. Cassidy looked delighted in the way people look when they know someone else is about to be punished. My father lowered his eyes to his plate. My mother set her fork down slowly. "What did you say?" she asked. My hands were shaking under the table, but my voice stayed clear. "I earned that scholarship. It isn't family money. It is Cassidy's money. It's mine." My mother leaned back and studied me like I had become something unpleasant. "You think you're better than us now because some program sent you a letter." "No," I said. "I think I'm allowed to go." Her face changed then. Not anger exactly, decision. "If you can't sacrifice for this family," she said, "then maybe you don't belong in it." I thought it was a threat. I didn't understand yet that she had already begun turning it into a plan. 3 days later, I came home from the public library and found 2 plastic laundry baskets on the back steps. My clothes were inside, folded badly, with my school backpack thrown on top. For a moment, I thought my mother was cleaning or reorganizing. Then I saw my toothbrush in a sandwich bag, my favorite hoodie, my math notebook, my father's old sleeping bag rolled beside the baskets. My mother opened the back door before I could knock. She was wearing her work blouse and the expression she used when a patient argued about an overdue bill. "Your Uncle Leonard is coming," she said. "He agreed to take you. From now on, you can be his responsibility." I stared at her. "What?" She crossed her arms. "You made it clear you don't want to be part of this family. I'm giving you what you want." I looked past her into the kitchen. My father stood near the sink with his hands in his pockets. He didn't move. He didn't defend me. He didn't even look surprised. Upstairs, Cassidy's curtain shifted. I saw her face for a second, pale and curious, then gone. I asked my mother if I could come inside until Uncle Leonard arrived. She said no. "You need to learn that choices have consequences." Then she shut the door. I sat on the back steps beside those baskets for hours. The sun went down. Mosquitoes bit my ankles. My stomach cramped because I had skipped lunch to save money for bus fare. No one brought me water. No one turned on the porch light. At one point, I heard Cassidy laughing at something on television. That sound followed me for years. Uncle Leonard lived in Denver, almost 12 hours away by car. I barely knew him. He was my mother's older brother, though she spoke of him with resentment more than affection. I knew he owned buildings and wore nice coats and sent Christmas cards my mother threw away after reading them. I didn't know he had driven through the night after receiving one phone call. When his black SUV turned into the driveway close to midnight, I was half asleep against my backpack. He got out, took one look at me, and his face broke in a way I had never seen an adult's face break for me. He didn't ask why I had caused trouble. He didn't ask whether I had been disrespectful. He came straight to the steps, knelt in front of me and said, "Mara, I am so sorry." That was the first apology I ever received for something that had been done to me. Before we left, my mother came outside with a folder. She and Uncle Leonard spoke in low voices near the garage. I couldn't hear everything. I heard temporary, then legal, then my mother saying, "I don't want her back here causing division." My father signed something on the hood of Uncle Leonard's SUV. My mother signed after him. Uncle Leonard signed last. A notary stamp pressed into paper under the weak porch light. I was 13. I thought adults signed papers for school transfers or medical forms. I had no idea I was watching my parents legally surrender their authority over me. I just knew that when Uncle Leonard helped me into his car and buckled the seat belt because my hands were shaking too badly to do it myself, he said, "You have a home now. Whatever happens next, you have a home." Denver felt like another planet. Uncle Leonard's house stood on a quiet street lined with old trees and red brick homes. It wasn't enormous, but to me it felt like a palace because my bedroom had a door that closed, a desk by the window, and shelves he told me I could fill however I wanted. He took me shopping the day after we arrived, not for luxury things, for basics, socks, pajamas, a winter coat because he said Colorado weather changed quickly. At the checkout counter, I apologized for the total. He looked confused. "Mara," he said, "children are not debts." I had to turn away because I didn't want the cashier to see me cry. Uncle Leonard ran Vale Commercial Group, a real estate investment and property management company he had built from a single warehouse he bought in his 30s. By the time I came to live with him, he owned several small office buildings, medical suites, and mixed-use spaces around Denver and Boulder. He was disciplined, direct, and incredibly gentle in ways that surprised me. He expected effort, but not perfection. He asked about my grades, but also whether I had friends, whether I was sleeping, whether I wanted pancakes or eggs on Saturday. When the robotics program started that summer, he drove me to campus himself. Before I got out of the car, he handed me a small notebook. Write down everything you learn, he said, not because you need to prove anything to anyone, because your mind deserves records of its own life. I worked hard because hard work was the only language I trusted at first. In high school, I joined the robotics team, then the debate club because Uncle Leonard said learning to speak in rooms that intimidated me would matter later. I graduated as valedictorian with scholarships to the University of Colorado Boulder, where I studied finance and data analytics. During summers, I interned at Vail Commercial Group. I started with filing cabinets and tenant spreadsheets, then lease reviews, then operating budgets, then investor reports. Uncle Leonard never handed me authority because I was living under his roof. He made me earn it, and because he believed I could, earning it felt like dignity instead of punishment. By 23, I had a master's degree in real estate finance. By 25, I was director of acquisitions at Vail. By 27, I was chief operating officer. The portfolio had grown from 9 properties to 14, with a combined value of more than $28 million. I knew every building, every loan covenant, every tenant improvement allowance, every roof that needed replacing before winter. Uncle Leonard used to sit across from me in the conference room, pretending to challenge my projections harder than he needed to because he liked watching me defend them. On my 28th birthday, he sent me an email with the subject line, "My proudest investment." It said, "You were never hard to love. Some people are simply too small to recognize what they have been given. Don't spend your life trying to be chosen by people who failed the first test. Choose yourself. I already chose you years ago." In 16 years, my biological family contacted me 4 times. The first time was when I was 15. My mother called Uncle Leonard, not me, asking for money because my father's hours had been cut. She did not ask how school was going. She did not ask if I was healthy. She asked whether Leonard could help family. He told her family was not an ATM and hung up. The second time was when Cassidy graduated high school. My mother mailed a graduation announcement to Uncle Leonard's house with a handwritten note that said, "A sister should support her sister." I did not send money. The third time was Cassidy's wedding invitation, printed on cream cardstock with no personal message. I didn't attend. The fourth time was after Vail Commercial Group was featured in a regional business magazine. My mother emailed me, saying she had seen my name and was pleasantly surprised. She suggested coffee if I was ever ready to stop being distant. I deleted it. I used to wonder whether deleting that email made me cruel. Therapy helped me understand the difference between cruelty and refusal. Cruelty is when you enjoy causing harm. Refusal is when you stop volunteering to be harmed. I built a life where my nervous system no longer waited for my mother's footsteps in the hallway. I had friends, work I cared about, a home, and a man I called uncle in public but dad in every quiet corner of my heart. I did not need to reopen the door just because the people outside had finally noticed there was something valuable behind it. In late 2024, Uncle Leonard began getting tired in ways he tried to hide. At first, he blamed long meetings, then altitude, then age. By December, he could not walk from the parking garage to the office without stopping twice. The diagnosis came in January 2025. Advanced heart failure complicated by an old condition he had managed for years. The doctors were careful, but I understood the math of their faces. Months, maybe a year if treatment worked. It did not. He spent the spring putting everything in order. He met with his estate attorney, Evelyn Grant, several times. He updated corporate succession documents, charitable commitments, and personal papers. Whenever I asked whether he wanted me in those meetings, he shook his head. "You've carried enough," he said. "Let me carry the paperwork." He died on May 19, 2025, just after dawn, in a private room at St. Joseph Hospital. I was holding his hand. He had been asleep for hours, and then his breathing simply became quieter until it stopped. There was no dramatic last sentence, no movie farewell, just the terrible stillness of a world after the person who made it safe has left. I remember smoothing the blanket over his chest because I needed one last thing to do for him. I remember thinking I was an adult, a professional, a woman who had negotiated multi-million-dollar contracts, and yet in that moment I was 13 again, terrified of being left. The will reading was scheduled for June 4 at Evelyn Grant's office downtown. 3 days before it, my phone rang with a number from Idaho. I let it go to voicemail. Then I listened. "Mara, this is your mother. I heard about Leonard. I'm sorry for your loss. I also understand there will be a legal meeting regarding his estate. Since he was my brother, your father and I will be attending. Our attorney says we have rights. Call me back." I stood in my kitchen staring at the phone until the screen went dark. She had not called him Leonard in 16 years. She had called him arrogant, selfish, judgmental. Now he was my brother because his death had opened a door she believed led to money. I forwarded the voicemail to Evelyn. She called me within 20 minutes. "Mara," she said, "Janice and Paul Ellison have retained a lawyer named Martin Kessler. He filed notice that they intend to challenge the will." I closed my eyes. "On what grounds?" "Undue influence," she said. "They claim you isolated Leonard during his illness and manipulated him into leaving you control of his estate. They are asking for a substantial settlement to avoid litigation." I almost laughed because the accusation was so perfectly backward. The people who had abandoned me were accusing me of isolating the man who saved me. The next morning, I sat in Evelyn's office while rain tapped against the windows. Her firm occupied the 32nd floor of a building overlooking downtown Denver, with glass walls and quiet carpets and assistants who moved like nothing in the world could surprise them. Evelyn was in her 60s, silver-haired, precise, and impossible to intimidate. She slid the legal notice across her desk. "Their claim is weak," she said, "but weak claims can still be expensive. If they force discovery, delay probate, and create publicity, the estate could be tied up for months. Business operations would continue, but transfers, distributions, and strategic decisions could become more complicated. So they want me to pay them to disappear. That is the practical interpretation." I read the filing. My mother had described herself and my father as estranged relatives, seeking fair recognition after years of emotional manipulation by Mara Ellison. She wrote that Uncle Leonard had been vulnerable, lonely, and dependent on me. She wrote that I had inserted myself into his life as a teenager. Inserted myself. As if I had not been delivered to him in the middle of the night with 2 baskets of clothes and nowhere else to go. My hands went cold. Evelyn watched me carefully. "Leonard anticipated this possibility," she said. "He left instructions." She opened a drawer and removed an old folder, thick and labeled in his handwriting. "There is something you may not know." Inside was the document from that night in Idaho. It was titled "Voluntary Transfer of Guardianship and Relinquishment of Parental Responsibility." It had my full name, Mara Elise Ellison, my date of birth, my parents' names, Uncle Leonard's name, and a notary stamp dated June 18, 2009. The language was clinical. Paul and Janice Ellison voluntarily transferred full guardianship and decision-making authority to Leonard Vail. They acknowledged that they were unable or unwilling to provide continued care. They waived objection to future custodial petitions. At the bottom were their signatures, my father's slanted and uncertain. My mother's clean and bold. I stared at the paper. They signed this while I was outside. Evelyn nodded. Leonard kept every original. My throat tightened. For 16 years, a part of me had wondered whether I had exaggerated that night in my memory. Trauma does that. It makes you question whether the steps were really that cold, whether the hours were really that long, whether the adults were really that deliberate. And there it was in black ink, not a misunderstanding, not a bad evening. A legal abandonment. There is more, Evelyn said softly. She showed me another document, finalized 2 years later when I was 15. Adult adoption was not the issue. I had still been a minor, and because my parents had waived their rights, Leonard had petitioned to adopt me. The court approved it. Leonard Vale had become my legal father in 2011. He had told me he was handling school and medical paperwork. He had never told me the adoption had gone through because he didn't want me to feel pressured to call him anything before I was ready. I cried in Evelyn's office. Not loudly, not dramatically, just tears falling onto my hands while the woman across from me waited without rushing me. When I could speak, I asked, "What does this mean for their challenge?" Evelyn's expression sharpened. "It means your mother and father have an even bigger problem than they realize. Leonard was not merely your uncle and benefactor. He was your adoptive father. You are his legal child. Their allegation that you were an outsider manipulating him collapses under the record. Their claim based on sibling entitlement is also poor because Leonard intentionally excluded Janice with documented reasons." She leaned back. "We can handle this quietly. I can send Kessler the documents and offer them a small settlement in exchange for a release, if you want the cleanest route. And if I do?" Then they attend the reading, as they demanded. I read the will as Leonard instructed, including the explanatory clauses. I went home that night and sat in Uncle Leonard's study. His reading glasses were still on the desk. A legal pad had one of his notes on it. "Ask Mara about Boulder lease renewal." Ordinary words from a man no longer there to ask. I looked at the framed photos on his shelves. Me at high school graduation. Me holding my college diploma. Me in a hard hat during a warehouse renovation. Him beside me in every picture, proud enough for 2 parents. There were no pictures of Janice, Paul, or Cassidy. Not because he had erased them, but because they had never shown up to be included. I barely slept. At sunrise, I made coffee the way he liked it, too strong, and called Evelyn. "No settlement," I said. "If they want to come as family, let them sit in the room and hear what family actually means." Evelyn was quiet for a moment. "Are you certain? They made it public when they filed the challenge." "I'm not hiding the truth to protect them from the consequences of their own paperwork." "Very well," she said. "Then we follow Leonard's instructions exactly." The will reading took place on Wednesday, June 4, 2025, at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I arrived early wearing a charcoal suit, low heels, and the small gold earrings Uncle Leonard had given me when I became COO. My hair was pulled back, my makeup simple. I wanted to look like myself, not like a wounded child and not like a woman staging a victory. The conference room had a long walnut table, 20 chairs, and a view of the city under a gray sky. Evelyn sat at the head with 2 associates. Also present were the company's outside accountant, 3 senior employees from Vale Commercial Group, and representatives from 2 charities Uncle Leonard had supported for years, a youth housing nonprofit and a scholarship foundation for first-generation students. I understood immediately that their presence was not accidental. Leonard had wanted witnesses who were neither mine nor Janice's. He had built protection into the room. At 2:06, the glass door opened. My mother entered first. Janice Ellison had dressed for a funeral she had missed and a fortune she expected. Black dress, black heels, pearls, perfect hair. My father followed in a navy suit that pulled at the buttons. He looked older than I expected and smaller than I remembered. Cassidy came behind them, wearing a cream blouse and holding a designer purse like a shield. She was 31 now, divorced according to what little I had heard, with 2 children I had never met. Their attorney, Martin Kessler, entered last. He was tall, tan, and polished, with the confident smile of a man accustomed to making people nervous for money. My mother saw me and tilted her head. "Mara," she said, as if we had spoken last week. I did not stand. "Janice." The use of her name landed. Her eyes tightened. "I was hoping we could speak privately before this begins. There are things that should be handled inside the family." Evelyn rose before I had to answer. "Mrs. Ellison, Mr. Ellison, Ms. Ellison, Mr. Kessler." Seats have been arranged along the side wall for interested parties. The table is reserved for named beneficiaries, fiduciaries, and estate representatives. My mother's smile faltered. She had expected to be placed near the center. Instead, she was directed to the wall. It was a small thing, but people like my mother understand seating as status. She understood exactly what it meant. She did not sit quietly. She paused near the charity representatives and introduced herself in a voice loud enough for everyone. "I'm Leonard's sister, Janice. We were very close before certain circumstances created distance." Her eyes flicked toward me. The woman from the youth housing nonprofit gave a polite nod and said nothing. My mother continued. "It's heartbreaking what can happen when one person controls access to an aging relative." I kept my hands folded in my lap. Cassidy leaned toward my father and whispered, not quietly enough, "I can't believe she's at the table and we're treated like strangers." My father murmured something I couldn't hear. Martin Kessler opened his leather folder and began taking notes, likely hoping I would react. I gave him nothing. Evelyn checked the time. "We will begin." She opened a sealed envelope and removed a thick document. "This is the last will and testament of Leonard Adrian Vale, executed on February 3, 2025. Mr. Vale was evaluated for testamentary capacity by Dr. Elaine Porter on January 28, 2025, and found to be fully competent, oriented, and free from coercion or undue influence." Martin's pen slowed. My mother looked at him quickly. Their case had depended, at least partly, on the idea that Leonard had been too sick to know what he wanted. Evelyn had destroyed that within the first minute. She read the formal articles first. Identity, residence, revocation of prior wills, appointment of executor. Then she reached the inventory. At the time of his death, Leonard's estate included controlling interests in Vale Commercial Group, 14 commercial properties across Colorado with an estimated combined value of just under $30 million, investment accounts worth several million more, liquid assets, personal property, and charitable commitments already designated. Cassidy's lips parted. My mother sat very still, but I saw her fingers press into her purse. Money has a sound when it enters a room. It is not a cash register sound. It is the silence of people recalculating who they think they are allowed to become. Then Evelyn turned a page. "Article 5, Specific Exclusions." My mother straightened. "Regarding my sister, Janice Ellison, and her husband, Paul Ellison," Evelyn read, "I make no provision for either individual in this will. This exclusion is intentional, deliberate, and made with full knowledge of my family history." My father shifted in his chair. My mother's jaw hardened. Evelyn continued in Leonard's words. "In 1998, Janice requested and received from me a loan of $65,000 to prevent foreclosure on her family home. She signed a repayment agreement. No repayment was ever made. In later years, she represented that money as a gift. It was not." My mother flushed. "That is not relevant," she said. Evelyn did not look up. "Mrs. Ellison, you will have an opportunity to confer with your counsel after the reading. Interruptions will be noted," she continued. On June 18, 2009, Janice and Paul Ellison voluntarily transferred guardianship of their minor daughter, Mara Elise Ellison, to me. They did so after removing her from their home and declaring that they no longer wished to provide care. I retain the original signed and notarized document. Their later attempts to characterize Mara as the cause of family division are false. She was a child. The decision was theirs. My mother stood. "That is a lie." Her voice cracked through the room. "We never abandoned her. She was difficult. She wanted to leave." I looked at her then, really looked. 16 years had softened nothing essential. She was still trying to turn a child's survival into an adult's betrayal. Evelyn removed a certified copy from her folder and placed it on the table. "The original document is filed with the court records referenced here. A certified copy is available for inspection." My father stared at the document as if seeing his own signature for the first time. Cassidy's face had gone pale. Martin Kessler leaned toward my mother and whispered, but she shook him off. "You twisted everything," she said, pointing at me. "You always knew how to make people feel sorry for you." The old words might have wounded me once. In that room, surrounded by paper, witnesses, and the memory of the man who had chosen me, they sounded almost tired. I spoke softly. "Janice, you put my things outside and left me on the steps until almost midnight. I was 13. You signed the guardianship document before Uncle Leonard drove me away. That was not my manipulation. That was your signature." No one moved. My mother's hand dropped slowly. "You don't get to rewrite that night just because the truth is inconvenient now," I said. "I spent years wondering what I did wrong. This document proves the answer was nothing." Evelyn waited a beat, then resumed. "Article 7, Adoption and Sole Beneficiary." The air changed. My mother turned sharply toward Martin. "Adoption," she whispered before Evelyn had even read the next line. Evelyn's voice remained clear. "I, Leonard Adrian Vale, identify Mara Elise Vale, formerly Mara Elise Ellison, as my legally adopted daughter. Her adoption was finalized in Denver County Court on August 11, 2011, following the prior relinquishment and transfer executed by Paul and Janice Ellison. I leave the entirety of my residuary estate, including my ownership interests, real property, investment accounts, liquid assets, and personal effects to my daughter, Mara Elise Vale." The word daughter seemed to strike my mother harder than the money. She gripped the back of the chair in front of her. My father whispered, "He adopted her." Cassidy looked at me with an expression I could not read. Shock, guilt, envy, maybe all three. Evelyn continued. "Mara is my child in every way that matters, legally, morally, and in the daily practice of love. She came to me after being rejected by those who should have protected her. She did not ask for rescue. She asked only for a place to stand. From that place, she built a life of discipline, intelligence, and compassion. I trust no one more to carry forward my work." I had promised myself I would not cry. I broke that promise quietly. Tears blurred the table, the windows, Evelyn's hands holding the pages. Uncle Leonard had called me his daughter in private before, but hearing it there, in legal language designed to outlast denial, felt like being given back the years my parents had tried to erase. My mother sank into her chair. "This can't be valid," she said. "Martin, tell her." Martin Kessler did not answer immediately. He was looking at the documents with the expression of a man discovering the bridge he planned to cross had been removed years ago. Evelyn turned another page. "Mr. Vale also left a personal letter to be read aloud at my discretion if a challenge was filed by any excluded relative. Mara, do I have your permission?" I nodded because I could not speak. Evelyn unfolded a handwritten letter. I recognized Uncle Leonard's handwriting instantly. Firm, slightly slanted, the same handwriting on birthday cards and margin notes in operating reports. "My Mara," Evelyn read, "if this letter is being read in a room full of lawyers, then Janice came for the estate and not for me. I am sorry for that. I am sorry you have to sit through one more performance from people who confused control with love. But I also know you are no longer the child they left outside. You are the woman who survived them, outgrew them, and built something honorable from the wreckage they handed you." My mother made a small sound, but Evelyn continued. "When you arrived at my house, you apologized for needing dinner. You apologized for needing shoes. You apologized for taking up space. Watching you learn that care was not a bill you would be charged for was the greatest privilege of my life." I covered my mouth with my hand. The room disappeared except for his words. "I did not give you success. You earned it. I did not give you intelligence. You had it. I did not give you worth. You were born with it. All I did was refuse to let careless people be the final authority on your life. If anyone in this room tries to make you feel guilty for receiving what I freely chose to give, remember this. Inheritance is not only money. Sometimes inheritance is the right to stop begging for love from people who spent years proving they did not know how to give it. I leave you my estate because you are my daughter, because you are capable, and because I love you without condition. Use what I built to build further. Protect your peace, choose your family carefully, and never again apologize for taking up space. Forever proud of you, Dad." The last word undid me, Dad. He had signed it Dad, not Leonard, not Uncle. Dad, I let myself cry then because grief deserved honesty. Across the room, my mother was crying too, but her tears felt different. Not grief. Panic. Loss. The realization that the story she had told herself for 16 years had just been contradicted by law, memory, and a dead man's handwriting. She stood again, but the performance had changed. Her voice softened into something meant to resemble regret. "Mara, sweetheart, I made mistakes. I can admit that. I was overwhelmed back then. Your father and I were struggling. Cassidy needed so much. You were always so independent, and I thought..." "Stop," I said. The word was not loud, but it cut cleanly. "Do not call me sweetheart." Her face crumpled. "I'm your mother. You were my mother," I said. "Then you signed a document saying you no longer wanted the responsibility. Leonard became my father because he did the work. You don't get to return at the end and claim the title without the years." She looked around the room as if someone might save her from what I had said. No one did. "We are still blood," she whispered. "Blood is not a contract that only benefits you," I replied. It did not feed me that night. It did not drive 12 hours to pick me up. It did not pay for therapy. It did not attend graduations. It did not sit with Leonard in the hospital. You keep saying blood like it is a key. It is not. Not to my life. Martin Kessler finally stood. "I think it would be wise for my clients and me to step out and review the documents before making any further statements." Evelyn looked at him with a calmness that made the room colder. "Before you do, Mr. Kessler, there is one additional matter." She tapped a document on her tablet and turned the screen slightly. "Mr. Vale's files include correspondence with you from 2020, when he briefly consulted your firm regarding estate planning. In those communications, he disclosed his intent to exclude Janice Ellison and discussed the guardianship and adoption records in detail. Your firm declined further representation after Mr. Vale rejected a proposed reconciliation clause. Did you disclose that prior consultation to your current clients before filing a challenge against his estate?" For the first time, Martin Kessler looked truly afraid. My mother turned toward him. "What is she talking about?" He closed his folder. "We should discuss that privately." "You told us we had a case," my mother said. "You said she pressured him." He did not answer. Evelyn's voice remained even. "A formal notice regarding potential conflict of interest will be submitted to the appropriate disciplinary authority." Martin gathered his papers with stiff hands. "This meeting is no longer productive for my clients." He moved toward the door. My mother said his name twice. He did not turn around the second time. The door closed behind him, and for a few seconds the room was so quiet I could hear the rain against the windows. My father looked devastated, but not in the way I had once wanted. As a child, I had imagined him finally standing up, finally saying he was sorry, finally admitting he should have protected me. In that conference room, he only looked like a man who had followed the strongest voice for so long he no longer had one of his own. Cassidy cried silently, wiping under her eyes with the back of her hand. My mother sat rigid, staring at the certified copy of the document she had signed 16 years earlier. It was strange to watch someone meet their own choices as if they were strangers. Evelyn completed the reading. Leonard left significant gifts to the youth housing nonprofit, the First Generation Scholarship Foundation, and a small emergency fund for tenants in Vale-owned properties facing temporary hardship. He instructed that the company continue its policy of responsible leasing, fair maintenance, and community reinvestment. He named me executor and controlling owner. He requested, in writing, that I create a new program for young students pushed out of unstable homes who needed access to academic opportunities. I knew exactly what I would call it, the Standing Room Scholarship, because at 13, all I had needed was one safe place to stand. When Evelyn finished, she asked whether I wanted to say anything. I had not planned to speak. My face was still damp, my hands unsteady, but I stood because silence had protected the wrong people for too long. "Most of you knew Leonard as a business owner, donor, colleague, or friend," I said. "I knew him as the first adult who did not ask me to earn basic care. He took me in when I had nothing but 2 baskets of clothes and a head full of apologies for existing. He taught me that love is not measured by biology or performance, but by presence. With this estate, I will protect what he built. Vale Commercial Group will continue operating with the integrity he expected. His charitable commitments will continue, and the scholarship he asked me to create will begin this year." I looked toward my mother, not to punish her, but because I was no longer afraid to be seen telling the truth. As for the people who brought this challenge, I wish them no harm. But I will not confuse forgiveness with access. I forgave what happened because I refused to let it keep poisoning my life. That does not mean I owe anyone a relationship, money, or the comfort of pretending the past was softer than it was. The door they closed when I was 13 did not remain open forever. Leonard taught me how to build my own house. I live there now. No one clapped at first. Then the accountant, a serious man named Mr. Delaney who had worked with Leonard for 20 years, put his hands together once, then again. Others followed. It was not applause like celebration. It was acknowledgement. My mother did not move. My father stared at the floor. Cassidy looked at me through tears, and for one brief second I saw not the sister who had watched from the upstairs window, but the girl who might have been trapped in that house too, trained differently but damaged by the same woman. After the reading, people approached me gently. The Scholarship Foundation director told me Leonard had mentioned me at every annual luncheon. One of our senior property managers hugged me and said, "He would have loved how steady you were." Evelyn handed me the original copy of his letter in a protective sleeve. My mother lingered near the door after everyone else began leaving. Her makeup had streaked. The pearls looked suddenly theatrical, like costume jewelry after the play had failed. "Mara," she said. I waited. She opened her mouth. For a second, I thought she might finally say the only words that mattered without adding anything after them. "I am sorry," but she swallowed them. "You didn't have to humiliate us," she said instead. And there it was. Even then, the injury she could name was not the child outside in the dark. It was her embarrassment in a room full of witnesses. I looked at her and felt something inside me settle. "I didn't humiliate you," I said. "I stopped hiding what you did." Then I walked away. In the weeks that followed, Martin Kessler withdrew from representing my parents. Evelyn filed a professional complaint because his prior consultation with Leonard created an ethical problem he should never have ignored. I did not celebrate that. I did not need to. Consequences do not require applause to be real. My parents tried to find another lawyer, but once the adoption records, capacity evaluation, and Leonard's documentation were reviewed, no one reputable wanted the case. Their challenge dissolved into angry letters, then silence. 3 weeks after the will reading, my mother emailed me. The subject line said, "Please, just once." I stared at it for a long time before opening it. The message was exactly what therapy had taught me to recognize. She said she had made mistakes, but did not name them. She said she had been under unbearable pressure, but did not explain why that pressure had justified abandoning a child. She said I had always been stronger than other kids, as if my ability to survive neglect made the neglect less severe. She said she did not care about the money, then wrote 3 paragraphs about how the estate could heal the family if handled generously. She ended with, "I will always be your mother. Nothing can erase that." I read it once, then again, then called my therapist, Dr. Annika Shaw. She listened while I read it aloud. When I finished, she asked, "What do you feel?" I expected anger. Instead, I felt tired. "She still wants the title without accountability," I said. "And what do you want?" That question had once terrified me. Wanting anything in my childhood had been treated as selfish. Now I let myself answer. "I want no contact." Dr. Shaw said, "Then write that. You do not need to prosecute the whole past in an email. A boundary can be brief." So I wrote 4 sentences. "Janice, I read your message. I have forgiven the past for my own peace, but I do not want a relationship with you. Do not contact me again. I wish you no harm, but my decision is final." I pressed send, then I blocked her. My father sent one voicemail a month later. He said, "Your mother is taking this hard." Not "I am sorry." Not "I should have protected you." Not "I signed too." Just a report on my mother's feelings, as if I were still responsible for managing them. I deleted it without responding. That deletion felt like closing a window during a storm. Cassidy was different. In August, a handwritten letter arrived from her. I almost threw it away. Curiosity won. The envelope smelled faintly of perfume and cigarette smoke. Her handwriting was rounder than I remembered. "Mara," it began, "I am not writing to ask for money. I am not writing because Mom told me to. She does not know I have your address. I am writing because I watched you from my bedroom window the night they made you wait outside, and I have never stopped seeing it." I sat down before reading further. I was 15. I was old enough to know it was wrong. I could have come downstairs. I could have brought you a blanket. I could have called someone. I could have sat beside you so you weren't alone. I did none of those things. I told myself I was scared of Mom, and I was, but that does not excuse it. I let you be alone because it was easier for me. I am ashamed of that. The letter continued for 3 pages. No excuses, no request for forgiveness. No mention of inheritance, except to say she wanted nothing from Leonard's estate. She wrote about how our mother had retold the story for years, always making me ungrateful, dramatic, impossible. Cassidy admitted she had repeated that version sometimes because believing it made her own silence feel less ugly. Then she wrote, "The will reading was the first time I heard the truth spoken in a room where Mom could not control it. I am sorry I did not speak it sooner. You deserved a sister that night." I was not one. I cried harder over Cassidy's letter than I had over my mother's email because accountability, when it finally appears, has its own kind of grief inside it. It shows you what could have existed all along. I did not answer immediately. Dr. Shaw and I spent several sessions talking about what contact with Cassidy would mean. I did not owe her reconciliation because she had finally told the truth. But I also noticed that when I imagined never replying, something in me resisted. Not obligation, possibility, a small one, a cautious one. I wrote back in September. "Cassidy, I read your letter many times. Thank you for naming what happened without asking me to make you feel better about it. I am not ready to be close. I do not know if I ever will be. But I am willing to try limited contact under clear conditions. You may not pass messages from Janice or Paul. You may not discuss money, the estate, or legal matters. You may not pressure me for forgiveness. If I need distance, you will respect it. If you agree, we can start with one video call a month, 20 minutes. Her response came the next day. "I agree to all of it. Thank you for even considering it." Our first call was awkward in the way honest beginnings often are. Cassidy appeared on screen in a small apartment kitchen, her hair pulled back, no makeup, a child's drawing taped to the refrigerator behind her. She looked less like my mother without the performance. We talked about simple things. Her job at a salon, my work, Denver weather, her children Noah and Willa mentioned carefully without making me an aunt before I chose to be anything. At 19 minutes, I said I needed to go. She nodded immediately. "Thank you for the time," she said. "Not that's all. Not after everything. Just thank you. That mattered." The next month, we talked for 25 minutes, then 30. Progress was not a dramatic reunion. It was the absence of pressure. A year after the will reading, I stood outside Leonard's first building, a 3-story brick property in 5 Points he had purchased when he was 34 with a risky loan and more courage than cash. We had renovated it that winter. New windows, efficient heating, restored brickwork, accessible entrance. Beside the front door was a bronze plaque I had commissioned. It read, "The Leonard A. Vale Building. In memory of a man who believed family is proven by care, not claimed by blood. 1956, 2025. I touched the raised letters with my fingertips and felt the cold metal steady me. Vale Commercial Group was thriving. We had completed 2 acquisitions, increased occupancy, and launched the Standing Room Scholarship. The first 5 recipients were students who had experienced displacement, foster care, family rejection, or housing instability. Each received full funding for summer academic programs, plus travel, supplies, and mentorship. One girl wrote in her application, "I want to study engineering, but I don't have a quiet place to think." I knew exactly what Leonard would have said. "Then we will help you find one." I approved her award myself. People sometimes ask whether inheriting the estate healed me. It did not. Money cannot go back in time and bring a blanket to a child on the steps. It cannot make a father look up when he chose to look away. It cannot make a mother loving. What it can do when placed in responsible hands is become structure. It can become scholarships, housing, medical grants, paid staff, repaired buildings, second chances. Leonard understood that money was not love, but it could be used by love. That is what I try to remember when the numbers get large and the work gets complicated. As for Janice and Paul, I do not know much. They stopped trying to reach me after the final legal notice. Occasionally, Cassidy mentions them in passing, never as a messenger, only as context. My mother still tells people I was turned against her. My father still avoids conflict. I no longer feel the need to correct every room I am not in. The truth does not become false because someone repeats a lie to a smaller audience. Cassidy and I are not what most people would call close, but we are no longer strangers. She has kept every boundary. She has never asked for money. She has never defended our mother. Once, during a call, her daughter Willa ran into the room holding a science project made from cardboard and tape. Cassidy smiled and said, "Your Aunt Mara knows about engineering." Then she froze, realizing what she had said. I froze too. Willa just waved the cardboard bridge at the screen. I could have corrected it. I didn't. Not because the word was fully comfortable, but because for the first time a family title had been offered gently, without demand. Some doors do not reopen all at once. Some become windows first. I still think about the girl on the back steps, 13 years old, hungry, embarrassed, trying not to cry because the people inside might hear and feel satisfied. For years, I wanted to go back and rescue her. Now I understand that I did, just not by changing what happened. I rescued her by believing her, by refusing to let the adults who failed her define her, by building a life where she would never again have to sit outside a locked door waiting for someone else to decide whether she deserved warmth. The most important thing Uncle Leonard taught me was that family is not a word people get to use as a weapon after they have refused the responsibility that comes with it. Family is who shows up. Family is who tells the truth when lies would be easier. Family is who protects your future before there is any reward for doing so. Sometimes family shares your blood. Sometimes it signs adoption papers quietly and waits for you to choose the name Dad when your heart is ready. Sometimes family is a friend sitting beside you in a lawyer's office, a therapist asking what you want, a sister finally brave enough to admit she failed you, or a scholarship committee telling a child, "We saved you a place." If you are listening to this and thinking about someone who hurt you but still expects access to your life, I want you to understand something clearly. Forgiveness and reconciliation are not the same. Forgiveness can be private. It can happen inside you, for your peace, without ever reopening the door. Reconciliation requires accountability, changed behavior, and your consent. No one is entitled to it because of a title, a shared last name, or a version of the past they prefer. You are allowed to set boundaries with parents. You are allowed to set boundaries with siblings. You are allowed to protect the life you built after surviving the one they gave you. My mother thought the will reading would be the day she claimed what Leonard left behind. In a way, she was right that something was inherited that day, but it was not hers. I inherited my father's work, his buildings, his responsibilities, and his faith in me. More than that, I inherited the final proof that I had never been the problem. I was a child who needed love. Someone else had failed to give it. Someone else had chosen to. And now, when I unlock the office each morning, when I read scholarship essays, when I sign renovation budgets, when I pass Leonard's plaque at the building where it all began, I do not feel like an abandoned girl pretending to be powerful. I feel like a woman who finally understands that being unwanted by the wrong people does not make you unworthy. It makes their judgment unreliable. My story did not end on those back steps. It did not even end in that conference room when my mother's face turned white. It continues every time I choose peace without apology, every time I protect a boundary, every time I use what Leonard gave me to make sure another child has somewhere safe to stand. If this story reminded you of your own, share it with someone who needs to hear that family is proven by love, not by blood alone. Leave a comment about the boundary you finally had the courage to protect. Subscribe to After Silence Stories for more stories like this, and I'll see you in the next episode.